Just waiting on people to show up. Hey, there's the first couple people.
Oh, man. Oh, there's no video. Hold on. All right. Wait. There we go. Okay.
Now we get to talk about everything leading up to World War II. So it gets a little more exciting for most people, especially if you like the small stuff that leads up to it.
I actually knew
Huh?
about the two things that we had to research, and I was like, wow, I knew both. That's nice.
Now we're going to talk about the annexation of Austria, the remilitarization of the Rhineland, Munich Agreement, Non-Aggression Pact.
Mr. Hughes, I have a question.
Okay.
I don't know how do you do the lockdown browser? I know you put like the instructions like in the Google Classroom, but I still don't know how to do it.
You're going to have to contact them. Like, you're going to have to call them because there's only so much I can do. And what I posted in there is all that I know. And that's all I did to download it to my computer. I followed the exact same instructions just to see like how easy it would be. I did that. It was on my computer within 5 minutes. So.
Okay. I'll try it again, but if I can't, I'll call them.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can't put it on a phone.
Yeah, I tried it on my computer, but I was just really confused. But I'll try to figure it out.
It was I went onto the assignments thing, and it kind of said like you can click here, and it was like in a certain text, and so I clicked on it, and it just downloaded for me.
Okay. That's what I'm gonna try to do then.
Miss Lorenzen, how's it going?
Good. Just got bubbling.
Lauren Middle. Not Middle. Lauren Middle. I know AJ won't be here. He's got a class at 11:15 for chemistry. So, I don't know about anyone else though. Lauren Deering's probably still sleeping. You know, she was in those prime hours earlier, so hasn't got enough rest yet. Did you guys do your research? Did you update your documents?
Yep.
Yes,
sir.
I know I've gotten a few of them.
Do we have to share it again once we did it, or?
No, you don't. What I do is I just go through, as long as you shared it with me, like don't put it on the website, on the classroom. Just share it with me. It'll send an email to me, and then I just search your name, look at the document, double check to make sure that it's all up to snuff. I chopped down a couple of trees yesterday after our Bible class.
Good job.
It was something to do to get out of the house. I've got another one I'm going to take down today, but I don't know. It's literally twice the size of the ones I took down yesterday. My wife's like, "Oh, it's not that large." Okay. I'm sitting here looking at it. It's at least 30 feet tall. The ones I took down yesterday were maybe 12 to 15.
Are you gonna do anything to the wood?
I'm going to burn it. I have a fire pit. Oh, there's Lauren Deering. Hey.
Slept through my other one this morning. I'm lucky to be here.
Are those eyelashes above your bed there, Olivia?
Yeah.
Huh. I noticed that they're closed. Is that symbolic of sleeping?
I don't know. My sister put it there.
All right. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started with what we've got so far. Anyone who joins after this will be perfectly fine. I'm not going to mute you guys if you have a question. A lot easier than me watching the side of my screen to see if anyone raises their hand. Just if any loud noises happen in the background, just kind of mute yourself until it's over. And that way we can kind of get through all of this. We're going to have four things that you're going to write down today in your notes. 4 different things that kind of finish leading us to World War II. If you'll remember, the Treaty of Versailles is really what paves that road. And everything that happens after that is a result of the Treaty of Versailles. And one of the first things that you'll need to know of is the remilitarization of the Rhineland. I'll write that in the chat. As per the Treaty of Versailles, it said that Germany had to completely leave the Rhineland. There could be no military forces there. And it also said that they had to accept American, British, French, at least those 3 could put armies inside of the Rhineland. And so there were forces from those countries in the Rhineland. And on top of that, Germany was told that they had to have an extremely tiny army. And so on March 7th, 1936, Hitler officially basically annuls that part of the Treaty of Versailles. And we're going to talk a little bit about how he does that. In 1925, there's something you need to know. It goes along with this. It's called the Locarno Pact. Again, I'll throw that into the chat. So they had a meeting in Switzerland, and 1925, it affirmed the Versailles Treaty, and it also allowed Germany into the League of Nations. So basically, Germany came in 1925, and they said, okay, we're going to say that we're going to abide by the Treaty of Versailles forever, and you'll let us into the League of Nations because, you know, everyone needs to join the League of Nations. It's very successful in all that it does. And so Germany is allowed into it for the first time. However, by 1930, the German chancellor at the time, not trying to set things up for World War II, but unbeknownst to him, he really is. He gets all of the different nations, Britain, France, the United States, to take their armies out of the Rhineland and leave it with nobody there. Like there's no one protecting it, nothing. It's just open land. And Germany promises that they won't put military forces there either. But guess who's coming in about 4 years? That would be Hitler. Hitler comes to power, and in 1934, he kind of speaks out against the Locarno Pact, calling it like a bad idea. And then in 1935, he completely denounces the Treaty of Versailles. And by 1936, he puts his army in the Rhineland. And guess what everyone does?
Freak out?
No, absolutely nothing. You see, at this point in European history, the United States is completely an isolationist group. Like, they want nothing to do with Europe. Like, you guys need to handle your own problems. Don't come talking to us. And so Britain and France were in no position to fight a war whatsoever. They didn't have the military means. They didn't have the armies. They didn't have anything. And so whenever Hitler completely annuls that section of the Treaty of Versailles and he goes into the demilitarized zone in the Rhineland, Britain and France are just like, you know what? It's a small concession to give up for peace, and we're going to allow it. And it literally is what starts this process of appeasement. You guys know what appeasement is? Or does anyone know what appeasement is?
You know, like trying to get them satisfied.
Yeah, it's like you can have this, as long as you don't do anything else too bad, you can have it. Don't just do nothing else, and we'll be fine. And so that's really how you begin to see this process of appeasement, and everyone's like, all right, just give Hitler what he wants, because, you know, the Treaty of Versailles really took a lot away from Germany, and all he's really trying to do is regain what he lost in that time period. And so you can have the Rhineland, Hitler. Don't worry. It'll be fine. Nobody's going to come fighting you over this. The next thing that you have is the annexation of Austria. You know what it means to annex something, out of curiosity? It means to take it away and make it yours. So Hitler had a plan to literally go into Austria, and, well, it would no longer be Austria. It would be Germany. So there was this section of Austria that had German-speaking people there, and so he just says, since they speak German, they should be part of Germany. And what happens is there's actually a group of Austrian people who are a part of the Nazi Party who for 4 years worked tirelessly to make them part of Germany. And they were extremely unsuccessful in everything that they did. And by the way, they did this through various means of terrorism and everything else. And they blackmailed people. They were never successful. But Hitler kind of jumped onto this idea and said, well, you know, the Austrians want to be German. We've got these German-speaking Austrians, so you want to be part of Germany. And what happens is the leader of Austria here reaches out to Hitler to try and get him to kind of calm things down and to stop what's known as the Anschluss. I'm going to put that into the chat because I doubt any of you can spell that. This is literally what they called the annexation of Austria. And so the leader, his name is Kurt von Schuschnigg. You do not need to write that down. I am not going to take time to spell that out. But he is the chancellor of Austria at this time, and he's like, hey, you know what, Hitler, let's have a meeting and let's figure these things out. True to form, the meeting does not go well for Kurt. In fact, he gets bullied into putting, I think it was 4 or 5 Austrian Nazis in prominent positions in his government. And that happened on March 11th. No, March 9th was their meeting. So he was forced to put some Austrian Nazis in his cabinet and his party. And then 2 days later, Hitler forces him to resign his power. And he says, you know what, you need to go. We've got a better plan. And he's also told that he needs to tell the Austrian people in his resignation speech not to try to stand against the German invasion. And basically they forced him to do this upon pain of killing him if he doesn't. And true to form, Hitler on March 12th, 1938, will come into Austria and completely take it away and make it part of Germany. In fact, Austria will not exist again until after 1945, after World War II is over. So literally, Austria ceased to exist from 1938 to 1945, all because Hitler, you know, wanted it. And it all started out with, hey, there's some German speaking people there. We should annex that area of Austria. And then it progressed to, well, there are other Austrians who want to be part of Germany, so let's bring them in as well. And it literally, you're going to see this play out in every country. Oi! Come here. Hold on. Go inside. All right, welcome back. So you're going to see this play out in literally every single country that he will take over from now until the end of World War II. He will start out with, well, there's some German-speaking people there, and then it will progress to, well, if we're going to take some of it, why not all of it, right? I mean, who just wants part of the pie? You want the whole thing. And so the annexation of Austria will be complete on March 12th when Hitler just marched in and nobody did anything. And guess what England and Britain does?
Nothing.
Ooh, you really shouldn't have done that, buddy. But we're not ready for war, so here's your slap on the wrist and don't do it again. Literally, and I'm not kidding. And by the way, pay attention to the dates. He went and he remilitarized the Rhineland in 1936. 2 years later, he annexes Austria. Now, in that same year, September 30th, 1938, this is when you have the Munich Agreement. So Hitler, once again, has found a population of people in another country who speak German. And of course, everyone knows that all German-speaking peoples should be part of Germany. And so this time he finds it in Czechoslovakia. Now, this is one of the things that I had you guys research. And so the Munich Agreement comes about. France and Britain sends these leaders there, the prime ministers, to discuss how to do this properly, or basically how to avoid war. Neville Chamberlain is the name that you really need to know from this encounter. I can type that out real quick. He gets very excited by all of this. He thinks that he has really done a great work in the world. In fact, he comes back after this agreement is announced, this Munich Agreement, and he says, "We have achieved peace in our time." In fact, the British newspapers ran with just that. It says, "Peace in our time." And he comes off the plane, giving the peace sign. It's amazing. He's an awesome guy. He's done an amazing work. He thinks that he has stopped World War II. Really, to be honest with you, and what we know looking back, all he does is actually, he kind of postpones it for a little bit longer. And what happens is they, in this agreement, they agreed that he could have the German-speaking portion of Czechoslovakia. You know what? It's yours. Now, it's absolutely wonderful to watch other countries give away land that doesn't belong to them. This kind of goes back to that British idea, the French idea of being like superior to everyone else. Remember the colonization that they did throughout the world? We should spread our culture everywhere because if nothing else, they'll be just a little bit better for it. And so these ideas are still kind of there at this point in history, and they're giving away land in other countries that they can't. They have no right to, but they're like, you know what? If it avoids war, everyone, let's let them have it. And so once again, they kind of come to this like, here, this is yours, take it. And so Hitler is appeased by this. However, notice the date. The agreement was signed on September 30th, 1938, or at least it was made public that day. It was actually signed a couple days before that. But March 15th, if I remember correctly, March 15th, 1939, Hitler decides, you know what? I want the rest of Czechoslovakia. So he literally marches in, annuls the entire Munich Agreement, and takes the whole of Czechoslovakia for himself. Guess what Britain and France do?
Wait, that's illegal.
This time, their hackles raise a little bit. They're like, ooh, you can't trust this guy. Hitler is not keeping any of his agreements. How dare he? Ooh, we better be careful with this one. He's a snake in the grass. So for the first time, Neville Chamberlain is like, ooh, maybe I didn't do such a good job. But of course, he's going to keep all of his swagger until September 3rd. And he'll be replaced shortly thereafter by Winston Churchill, which fascinating character, and I'll talk about him at the end. But literally just marches into Czechoslovakia and is like, we took the German portion, but I'll be honest with you, I kind of wanted this whole thing as a package deal, so I'm going to take it. And Czechoslovakia was, well, gone at that point. They didn't really put up much of a fight, and they had won. Now, France and Britain are like, okay, we've got to watch out for Hitler. So what are we going to do? France actually signs a treaty with Stalin to say that if Hitler attacks Poland, you're going to help us. And we're going to start a two-front war, and we're going to make Germany really feel the pain. And Stalin said, all right, we'll do that. Now, Hitler is really upset by this. So he begins some talks with Stalin, and they don't go well at first. In fact, he started all the way back whenever he took Czechoslovakia. I believe he started on March 30th of that same year. And he's talking to Stalin, and Stalin wants nothing to do with Hitler. And he's like, no, no, no. Communism and any other sort of socialism do not get along. And they hate each other. Hitler hated Stalin. Stalin hated Hitler. There was no love lost between either one of them. And so Hitler continues making contact, and he has plans. In August, he is going to go into Poland, and he is going to take it by force if he has to. Britain and France have promised that if he goes into Poland, World War II will begin. So Hitler's generals are really nervous. They don't want to start a two-front war because even though Stalin has gone in and literally killed off, it was almost 2/3 of his generals. He weakened his military amazingly because he thought they were trying to kill him, which is probably true. Okay, Stalin was not great, and just like Hitler's generals tried to kill him throughout World War II, Stalin's generals tried to kill him all the time. It was long-lasting in his whole career. In fact, the paranoia of Stalin is a fun thing to talk about. Maybe we'll do that one time. But so Hitler keeps talking, and finally he strikes on an idea that piques Stalin's interest. He says, "Look, if I take Poland, you can have part of it." Stalin goes, "What? You said I could have part of Poland?" And he says, "Yes. Would you accept my minister if he comes and you guys could negotiate something to make this work out?" And Stalin says, "Sure, send him on up." So he sends a guy by the name of, let's see, I have it written down over here. This is something I did write down. Joachim von Ribbentrop. Want me to spell that? Probably Ribbentrop. I'll have to just, ask Susan if she knows. But that's on August 22nd, 1939. He sends this guy up there, and he begins to negotiate this treaty with a Russian by the name of Vyacheslav Molotov. I'm not writing that down. Molotov. If you know Molotov cocktail, you'll know that's how you spell his last name. But Vyacheslav, nope. We're not going to go there. It's going to take me too long to type out. And so these two start negotiating on August 22nd, 1939. And within a couple of days, I believe by August 25th, they had struck a deal that Stalin thought was great. One of the first things that Ribbentrop said is, you know what? We should agree to a pact where we're not going to attack each other for 100 years. Stalin goes, 10 years is fine. Makes you wonder what Stalin had planned in and of himself, because 10 years is not very long time period not to attack one another. So that part of the treaty everyone knew about. But there were some other things that weren't made public until after the war. One of these things is that he agreed to that Hitler and Stalin had already agreed how to break up Eastern Europe after World War II. They had already figured out who was going to control what area of Eastern Europe. And they had already agreed that he would get part of Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia right off the bat, all parts of Eastern Europe. He would automatically get all of those, not including anything else that was taken after the war was over. And so they agreed to this pact, and everyone was happy. Hitler was thrilled because now his generals would go full force into this war because they don't have to worry about Russia coming from one side and Britain and France from the other, which there's really no reason for them to worry about Britain and France because they have put zero money into their military and they have not grown their military once. In fact, they've shrunk it down to half its size from World War I. And so even putting Britain and France combined together, they were nothing compared to what the Germans had made, because they had taken tanks and made them impenetrable to bullets, which big change from World War I. And the guns that they placed on these things were devastating. Not to mention the airplanes that they had made were faster. They could carry more weapons, and they had started fitting bombs onto them. So that made things worse than World War I as well. And so all of the military engagements, the submarines, everything that Germany had done, no one else was doing. And so there's really no need for him to worry about Britain and France at all, because they can't stop anything at this point. And so September 1st, Hitler invades Poland. And by September 3rd, Britain and France declare war, essentially starting World War II. I think by September 6th or 7th, he had completely conquered Poland. It was pretty quick. It didn't take him very long. And so his blitzkrieg proved very effective in Poland there. In fact, it's exactly what he would use throughout. And yes, France is a joke throughout history, and especially whenever it comes to war. Now, Winston Churchill, he's one guy I find it, I want to mention to you. I don't know how much you guys know about him. In World War I, he had a failed campaign known as the Gallipoli campaign, and it kind of cost him a lot whenever it failed. In fact, it cost him a lot of political prestige, and it kind of put him on the back burner. In the early 1930s, he went to the leaders of the British military and told them, we need to invest in our tanks, we need to invest in our planes, we need to invest in our boats, in submarines, everything. And they laughed him out of the room. And he told them that World War II was coming, and they told him he's just a harbinger. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He just wants war to come along to make himself popular again. However, whenever Neville Chamberlain is ousted about 2 months after World War II begins, guess who they put into office? Winston Churchill. And they called him then they called him an amazing guy. He saw the future and no one listened to him. And at that point it was like, well, you should have listened. And so Winston Churchill is just an interesting character. And if you ever want to see April 25th, if you ever want to see someone who had a really good wit, and whenever he talked to people and people who didn't like him and what he said to them, you should definitely look up Winston Churchill. On one occasion, a woman looked at him and she said, you know, if you were my husband, I would put poison in your tea. And he looked at her and he said, if you were my wife, ma'am, I would. So that just gives you an idea of Winston Churchill and how interesting of a character he actually was. But yeah, definitely Stalin. We'll talk about him when we get to the Cold War, but Stalin was literally probably the most paranoid person ever in history. Really quite fascinating. Any questions?
Not really.
Very good. All right, so a couple of things. I'm going to type these in real quick for you to look up for next time.
Mr. Hughes,
What's up?
it's Autistic Awareness Day.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
I did not know that. So those are three things to look up real quick. Operation Barbarossa, Nuremberg Laws, and Wannsee Conference. By the way, those are all the first one's taking place during World War II, and the other two are taking place mostly after World War II. So we're going to be, like I told you before, we're not, AP Euro they don't fight a war. So kind of skipping through it for the most part. We'll look a little bit at Japan next time and what they were doing and how they were part of the Axis powers. But other than that, that'll be about it. All right. I'll be posting the short answer question later. Again, it'll be on the AP Central, so you need to make sure that you download the Lockdown browser. Follow the instructions that I posted. If you still can't figure it out, you need to call them, because I've done everything that I know to do, and it's exactly what I did. I downloaded it onto my computer. So if it's not working for you, call AP people and ask them. Okay. Any thoughts on all of this?
Celebrate Anzac Day, April 25th.
Anzac Day, yes. We can do that. Let's see, what day does that fall on?
Saturday, I think.
Is it a Saturday? Oh, that's a shame.
It is.
Maybe we can record a special video for it. Anzac Day. Maybe I'll make sure that everyone researches that one. I'm feeling most of these people have their videos off just because they don't want people to see them. And Michaela is showing us a doorway? Can't tell. Lauren's so comfy. No, it's not the ceiling. It might be a window. I don't know. Either way. Kyle, how's the lake house?
Oh, I came home.
No, that's a shame.
Yeah, I came home Sunday. And now there's well, now we have to stay here for like the next month. So, yeah.
Why can't you go back to the lake house?
They're literally not letting people, because even though we have a house down there, there's some people live behind, and you don't they're quarantining everyone there, and it's so stupid. So now I can't go down there for a month.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Now you just get to suffer like the rest of us.
Yeah, no, I had to stay at the house. Play 2K. That's about it.
Oh, man.
You do that every day.
Nah, I do school and just chill. I mostly play with my little brother.
You should see if there's any yard work you can do for your parents.
That's what I've been doing. That's my work, I guess you could say.
Nice.
That's my job at the time. You got to pay for that car insurance, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir. That's all I'm doing right now. Just cutting grass and stuff.
You guys want to help your car insurance, what you need to do is buy a not new car
Yeah.
and a non-sporty car.
2003 Oldsmobile. It has manual roll-down windows, and it's
Did
great.
you say a 2003 Oldsmobile?
It's older than me. It's great.
Hey, that means a really cheap insurance thing there.
Yeah, and it was $2,000 to get the car, but the repairs were $2,000 as well.
That sounds about right. My wife had a 2003 Oldsmobile, Alero.
I don't know what mine is.
I'm
It
not
has
surprised.
Y'all are smart.
in the back seat, so I need to get the interior redone. So that's
One of the cheapest and best cars you can buy would be a Honda Civic. That's about 10 years old. The insurance on those are extremely cheap,
Mhm.
and they last for over 300,000 miles as long as you take care of them. So,
Yep.
my car was my aunt, who's related to me by marriage, grandmother's car, who died, and there was only like 6,000 miles on the car or something like that. So my family just sold it to me for $2,000.
hey, there you go. That works. Sometimes the best people to get cars from are old people who don't drive anymore.
Thanks.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll let you guys get going. Nice seeing you all.
All right.
Actually, I won't see you until next week, so have a great weekend.
Wait, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
When's spring break?
It starts next Friday.
Okay. All right, bye.
Bye.